A number of years ago, something incredible and an amazing coincidence happened, which put me on a mission to prevent heart attack. I became aware of the latest imaging technology to help define the health of individuals' arteries before they have a problem. Unfortunately, specialists and local doctors in my area didn't share my enthusiasm. I felt like I had a secret that I couldn't share. Eventually I decided I can't change the world from the top down, that I'd have to try and change from the bottom up. The Healthy Heart Network is an online, global community of like-minded people. We have an ever-expanding database of knowledge, a valuable, easily searchable and time-saving resource for members researching the latest information on heart attack causes and prevention. So you can start your journey to a healthier heart and reduce your risk of suffering a fatal heart attack. I believe we can prevent heart attack. We can put in place strategies to reduce risk. We can literally plan to change your future. I call it Healthy Heart Network.
Welcome back to 60 Minutes. I'll let you in on a secret. I'm not getting any younger, and neither are you. But we are getting bigger and bigger, and that's not good. The simple truth is we need to take better care of ourselves if we're to have a healthy life. So for a positive future, my doctors told me to look back, way back to my prehistoric ancestors' days. For 6 months now, I've been following his advice and dining like a caveman. Does it work? Well, you be the judge.
I'm going to lie you down on your back.
At first, it seemed like a sensible idea to hand my body over to science.
Makes it a bit more comfortable on your back.
But right now, I'm not so sure.
Maybe I don't need to do this after all, Jenny.
You've changed your mind?
Perhaps I'm not worried about the future.
After years of life on the road, not always lived wisely,
You'll hear the voice coming out of the machine asking when to breathe in and hold your breath.
I will obey the machine.
I started to worry about heart disease. If I'm going to have a heart attack, what will I experience?
It's scary. Patients describe terrible pressure in their chest. They haven't had anything like it before. They're often short of breath, sweaty, pale, unwell.
Cardiologist Dr. Warrick Bishop's remarkable technology
Small amount of calcium in the artery that runs down the front of the heart.
means that for the first time we can analyse how good or bad our coronary arteries are without any invasive surgical operation. To be able to see the workings, the inside of one's own heart, is extraordinary.
It's absolutely revolutionary, I believe.
A few days later, the results are in, and the doc gives me the bad news that the high life I've been leading has caused calcification in one of my coronary arteries.
And we can pick these changes up.
Well, you can be the picture of health, but you could be going down the wrong path to a heart attack. So here to help is cardiologist and author Dr. Bishop. He joins me now from Australia. Thanks for making the trek, right?
Thank you.
Or the trek all the way up here.
Thanks for having
Congrats on the book. But I feel like you wrote this so important for folks to hear, because you kind of hear people, oh my gosh, they're like the picture of health. All of a sudden they have a heart attack, right? And this happens too often.
Absolutely.
So what do you want people to know?
Well, in fact, that picture of health story is what started me on the journey to explore this. In 2005, I literally stopped on the way to work at a roadside cardiac arrest. A fun runner had dropped dead during a fun run, and I just thought I could help, so I did.
Yeah.
It turned out and we saved this man's life actually.
Yeah.
It turned out, and I found out several days later when his story made the front page of the paper, when I showed my staff at work, they quickly pointed out I'd seen the very same man 18 months earlier and had reassured him. And that, Casey, was incredibly confronting. I realised I'd missed an opportunity, and that opportunity nearly cost a life. And what that made me understand was the way we'd been evaluating things in the past was just not accurate enough.
Well, we're talking about your heart health today. Know Your Real Risk of Heart Attack is on sale right now at bookstores, and it tells the single biggest killer lurking and what to do about it. And right now, Dr. Warrick Bishop is here, the author, to tell us more. This is such a fascinating topic, and it's something that everybody grapples with. You know, why am I taking stuff? There's just so many issues that people are dealing with. I want to know why you wrote the book.
Look, I wrote the book because of something that happened to me in 2005. I was driving to work on a weekend. There was a fun run in progress, and as I was driving to work I noticed a commotion. There was an ambulance and a group of people, and being a doctor I thought, I wonder if I can help. So I pulled over, stopped. A 52-year-old man had dropped dead during the fun run from a heart attack, and I helped in his resuscitation. He lived. He made it to the hospital. In fact, his result was so good, he made the front page of the paper a couple of days later.
And so what happened in your head at that very moment?
I didn't even recognise the man. I was very, very proud. I took in the paper to my office and said, I was involved in this. This is a great outcome. And one of my secretaries said, but Warrick, you saw that same man 18 months ago. And I was absolutely horrified. I went and looked at the notes. I'd done a treadmill test on him.
No.
I'd evaluated his risks. Everything in terms of appropriate practice at that time I did right. But this man still had a heart attack during a fun run and died. And it really opened my mind to what can we do better to really know the health of someone's arteries. Obviously, stress tests don't tell us the whole story, and obviously our old-fashioned traditional risk assessments don't tell us the whole story either, Jan. It might allow us to be more precise, and literally over a course of a couple of years after that, technologies have moved on, and you don't have to look beyond your phone to realise how quickly technologies move.
Yeah.
So really, I in fact wrote a book to try and discuss where technology currently is and where current practice currently is, because the technologies move so quickly, most doctors aren't aware of what's available. Now, some people do know about this current technology, and I think before we went to air I was telling you that US presidents and astronauts currently are using this technology, but I think there's a real space for individuals who want to be proactive about their own health to know the questions to ask of their doctors to see if that technology is for them.
And we say that a lot here on The Morning Blend about taking some personal responsibility, knowing, getting a little bit of research on your own, like your book. What are some of the things that we can kind of do now to prepare us?
So look, it's really important not to forget what we call our traditional risk factors, and that's blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, and we could all name those, eating well, exercise, etc. But what I've written about is whether imaging the heart and actually taking a picture of the arteries to see what the health of the arteries is like, see if that's relevant for an individual, and that's an important conversation. Okay. And in fact, I've covered all the pros and cons in my book, so that if, for example, an individual's doctor wasn't quite up to speed with this technology, then at least the patient can bring a balanced perspective and have that conversation.
And we kind of also mentioned before we started about somebody looking physically just fine, but again, this goes back to that, knowing what's really going on the inside. You mentioned blood pressure. What about like statins, you know, things that we should probably know a little bit more about?
Sure. So look, the fun runner who I just told you about, he put on his sand shoes that morning thinking he was going to run 10 kilometres and drop dead. He didn't plan to have a heart attack, and he was fit. He'd trained up for this. And so being well on the outside isn't a guarantee, and people have to understand that. We have so many examples. President Clinton was running only days before he ended up having his bypass. And so you can look well on the outside, but the arteries may tell a different story. The thrust of the book is to save lives by preventing heart attacks.
Absolutely, and that's what all of us should be doing right now. Getting the book, knowing what to ask, knowing what's available to us, and knowing what we can do to, again, forewarn, you know, what is going on. I'm going to tell them how to get a hold of this book, start on that journey. Doctor, thank you so much, and thank you for expanding your knowledge to all of us.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks for having me.
That's wonderful. Everyone at home, to learn more about Dr. Bishop or his book, Know Your Real Risk of Heart Attack, please visit Dr. Warrick Bishop.
I believe we can prevent heart attack. With the right knowledge and information, we can be informed, forewarned, and prepared. We can put in place strategies to reduce risk We can literally plan to change your future. It all started when my life changed on a day a life was nearly lost. In 2005, on a cool autumn Sunday morning, I was driving to work during the time a fun run was in progress. I noticed there was a commotion by the side of the road, an ambulance and people gathering, and I thought I might just stop and see if I could help. It turned out that a 52-year-old man during the run had collapsed dead by the side of the road. A GP and a nurse who happened to be in the event had stopped to help, and the ambulance was there attending the scene. I joined in and was involved in the resuscitation of that man. Can you imagine a crowd of healthy runners, a man who had got up that morning excited to be part of an event he'd trained for, and now that man by the side of the road, his heart had stopped, and now he was fighting for his life. He did okay. 2 days later, in fact, he made the front page of the local paper, and I was so proud of myself that I took the paper into my office, only to have it pointed out to me by one of my staff that I'd seen the very same man approximately 18 months earlier in 2003 and told him he was fine. I had put him through a treadmill test, I had assessed his blood pressure, I had put him on a bit of aspirin, but nonetheless, here we are in 2005, and this man had fallen during a fun run. Can you imagine how I felt? I'd reassured him, only to be standing over his dead body at the roadside months later. I can't begin to tell you the feeling that left me with. What had I done wrong? What could I have done differently? What can be done differently? We all hear the statistics. We know that cardiovascular disease accounts for 50% of all deaths in the Western world. It kills over 350,000 people per annum in the United States, and that means that an American is dying every 40 seconds. In fact, since I've started talking, approximately 3 people have passed away from coronary disease. But it's not the statistics that move us, it's the human cost. You will know someone, stories of young lives lost, loved ones, husbands, wives, brothers and sisters. Could it be you? Who would be affected if it were you? What if it was someone you loved? It was this that was my impetus to change. More than ever, I became focused on prevention of the suffering caused by heart disease. I studied management of cholesterol, and I also became the first cardiologist in the state where I live to start using the latest imaging technology to help define the health of the arteries of an individual. I wanted to make a difference by providing the best possible care to my patients. My aim to reduce their risk of heart attack as much as possible. In fact, I became so excited about this possibility, I started to speak with my colleagues about it. I spoke at meetings in my town to the specialists like me, thinking they would be excited to embrace this new approach as I was. They weren't. Professional conservatism, healthy scepticism, and perhaps just a dash of cynicism meant I hit a brick wall. I spoke with the local doctors, the primary caregivers, to educate them about this great opportunity to be ahead of the game of heart disease. Another brick wall. Though this time because of a reluctance to utilise an approach that is not yet mainstream. Unable to convince my colleagues and unable to engage the local doctors, I was frustrated. I felt like I had a secret that could save the world, but nobody wanted to listen. I knew from my own experiences with my own patients that the way I was implementing treatments was making a difference. So how to get that information out there? Eventually I decided if I can't change the world from the top down, then I'd try to change things from the bottom up by educating and informing the very people who would be most interested in preventing a heart attack, and that's you. So I wrote a book. Well, initially it didn't sell particularly well, so I thought, well, what's the point of that? Unless I got the message out, then the message wouldn't be heard, and if it wasn't going to be heard, it wasn't going to make a difference and it wasn't going to save any lives. Then I realised I had to undertake my own journey to eventually bring my book to #1 bestseller. I started to embrace social media and to create awareness. I needed to offer people a way to get more than And that led me to create a network, a distillation of my research and my training and my experience. I truly believe we now have technology to save lives, to find people who really are at high risk of a heart attack before they have an event and put in place strategies to change their futures. I remain deeply passionate about stopping people dying while they still have plenty of life to live. You have to remember, life is not a dress rehearsal.